Warning, this show contains adult content, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Episode 163, welcome to another edition of Up and In It, guys. I want to talk about preparedness of disasters like the Texas freezing that's happened in 2021. And I just want to say, here's an excerpt from the news that I just read. It's not cost effective for the power companies to deal with these types of emergencies. What? Excuse me? This is pretty weird. I talk a lot on the show about how we're let down by our systems, how a lot of us are poor, a lot of us are struggling, and a lot of us depend on the grid. We depend on the power companies, obviously, for our power, for our water. There was just a story I heard that the city, a small city in Florida, they found that the water was actually manipulated by hackers. They actually put I forgot what it was, a bunch of stuff that's considered like chemicals that I guess are automatically set. Just like the pool in the facilities where I live, they have an emitting system that puts acid and chlorine in the water, and it's all automated. So I guess the city's water is automated as well. And this is the way things are moving all over the place. But what happened is they caught it just in time. And they says a lot of people could have got very, very ill, and some people could have died. Somebody hacked in the systems. This is pretty crazy. So as long as there's a human being there able to monitor these things and check these things out, or we have some sort of automation where it's constantly, it's going to send a red flag. But what happens if people hack it and take it down and then start emitting stuff into our water? With the power we have in Texas, we have that the blizzard came, and this is a natural disaster. So it wasn't any hackers or anything like that other than Mother Nature coming in and taking care of her business and freezing people, and hopefully nobody to death. I don't think that there was any recorded death. I don't really watch the news too much, but certain things like this catches my eye. And we try to talk a lot about philosophies and practices on the show of what you can do to live a better life, to improve quality of life for both the people and the planet, to live green, sustainable, resilient, whatever you want to call it. Regardless of what's happening, doing things because it's right. And today's show, I think, is more doing things because it's for the safety of your own family without having to deal with. It's just not cost effective for us to deal with emergencies like this. So that means we got to take a lot of shit in our own hands. I think we're going to see a lot of changes happening with AI and a lot of automation to things. We think that it's making our lives easier, but I think sometimes the old ways is where we need to go. I was talking a few weeks ago when I was at work in LA, and I got myself a hotel room. And when I got there late at night after a hard day's work, and they said, "We can't check you in, the computers are down." I said, "Well, why don't you just write it down on a piece of paper? And when the grid comes back on, then you can enter the data in there and I get my room." He says, "Sorry, we can't even issue you a little key now. We don't have a key to open the door. We have a little card." So I just want to put this message out here today. Other than we need to, because of a recession and things like that, I want to really help people out. But we have all kinds of things that could come our way, and we need to be prepared for this. So it's not one of those people who are building a bunker, hoarding food and guns, and we're going to go kill, we're hiding from the zombies, Sometimes, as I spoke the philosophy on your income, on managing money, expenses in particular, and what I called them was ghost expenses. I haven't heard anybody use that phrase, so I think it's my own, at least for now. But ghost expense is things like an illness that may come on you. A ghost expense is things that are right in front of your eyes, but you don't really notice them, like maybe say the tires on your car. You won't notice until you actually get a blowout. And for most of us, or a lot of us, I guess, who are prepared financially, that means nothing really. It may put us out for a few hours of the day or an entire day. We had to get our vehicle towed if we weren't prepared and had a spare tire or a way to fix our stuff, which we like to teach on this show, so we don't need to deal with a tow truck. We've got money, we've got a spare tire, metaphorically speaking, and we can get through just about anything. And that's how, why should you listen to a fuck like me? Because, in this 2021, I'm pretty much minimally affected financially and everything else with what's going on with the recession and things like that. And if we did have a freeze, I'm still would probably be minimally affected. I wouldn't be able to get to work probably and do some things, but as far as my family keeping warm because of some ice storm that happened, a freak ice storm, once in a lifetime moved in, I've got ways for my family that I'm set up almost better than most people who actually have a house. So I'll finish with that right there before we get into the intro. I don't have a house. I live in a tiny home, AKA travel trailer. And I choose that this is by design. I save a butt ton of money. I'm able to take off. I have the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. I usually take off, for those of you who are new to this show and don't know who I am, this is probably my 7th year in 2021, which I'm actually thinking of taking off for about a month or so with my children and go travel. Every year I do the same. I didn't do it in 2020 because I so chose to, and I chose to get my farm business, a new business going. But yeah, we'd be minimally affected. So let's get into it. I've got some short notes here, guys. It is spring's upon us and I got to get to planting. So I'm going to be kind of in and out and doing a lot of shorter shows for the next few weeks until I get my garden planted and everything set. So let's get into the show. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life raw, on your own terms and also safe. So let's get into what I got here. Heating. I guess it's because we're on the subject of this whole freezing thing that's happened in Texas. And the old ways, the wood stove prevails, I think. There's a few things we got here as far as heating. So not long ago, we all had wood stoves inside of our homes. I know there's some stragglers, some old timers that's got them. A friend of mine who passed away a few years ago, old guy, he had one of those beautiful stoves. It was white and green. And it was a stove, literally like a steel top stove, but it also worked as a heater. And it had this little drawer that you pulled out, you loaded with a bunch of small kindling and some hardwoods, and you closed it up, and you were able to bake, you were able to fry, and all kinds of different things on this thing, and also keep you warm. And he just loved having fires. That's what we would do. We would drink some sips of whiskey late at night by sometimes a trash barrel with holes poked on the bottom of it, like hobos. We call ourselves the Hobo Knights. And we used to just sit and talk. And then we had a fire pit and one in the ground, and he had one that he invented he welded. He was an auto mechanic. He welded with a giant goose on the front of it with a door and a latch and a special baffle system that made it kind of like a rocket mass heater, if people have never heard of one of those, like where it sucks the oxygen in and really blows it up. And it would be really neat at nighttime because the whole entire rear of the barrels, it was laying perpendicular here, and the back end would just be bright red because of all the suction of the air. A rocket mass heater, it causes the oxygen to, like a wind flow to go through, a vacuum, and it blows all the air to one side. So we'd literally sit in the back where it was really hot, and it'd be freezing cold, and the whiskey did help. And we'd sit in our lawn chairs and just talk and look at the stars and watch the owls and stuff. I really miss those days and really miss him a lot. But yeah, the old heating ways prevail. I think in times like this, if we had these in our homes, obviously in our tiny homes and our trailers, we can't really have one. You know, a little wood stove. I think I've seen a few people have some little tiny ones, but they're not very effective. But I don't think we need a wood stove if we can do other options, which we'll get into. So, yeah, if we had these freezing conditions, what we'd be able to do is actually heat our homes. We'd actually be able to cook, make hot water to wash dishes and things like that. And all we needed is wood. If we were so inclined to collect wood and have a storage of wood. I personally love fires. I think there's something very spiritual, it's very different to be heated, have your body warmed by electrical heat or gas heat in contrast to fire. I think there's something missing in our psyche that we've forgotten a long time ago. It's buried in there, it's still in there, but there's something magical about a fire. And sitting around it with friends and the crackling and the sounds and the sight of it reminds me of castles, all the embers and everything inside. And one of the fun things I used to do was get a little bit of a firework powder, and I'd put it inside of a napkin and put a little rubber band around it. And my kids, I used to tell some stories sometimes, and what I would do, or my friends, you know, especially your stoner friends, you can reach in your pocket and grab it and crumple it all up, and then you could say, look, I want to tell you guys a story, and then you just release the dust over the fire very quickly and throw your hands up like you've got an epiphany, and then the thing goes and sparkles all up and you got everybody's attention. Little neat creative stuff, like I said, you could do to make things fun, especially if life sucked, if you're in Texas and the fucking snow's everywhere and you guys are out of power and you're just like, oh my God, go back to storytelling and back to our primitive days and make some fun, make the best of the situation. But yeah, so I think some wood types. Let's get into what we would do. So there's a lot of different types of wood. I know a lot of people have gone so forward that we lost the backwards. We lost our in touch with nature and a lot of these skills. So I kind of want to just touch over briefly on types of woods and things like that, how to split them, how to store them. So you got some very hardwoods, depending on what part of the world. I know we got different listeners from all over. We got such things as eucalyptus wood, which has lots of oils in it, and it has a nice, good fragrance. And eucalyptus, if you can find it, if you're in Australia, I think, and probably parts of China, I would say. I'm not sure if they have it in China, but I know over here in North County, Southern California and San Diego, there's just eucalyptus everywhere. I do live in an RV park, and permanently. I don't travel around, but I have probably about a whole cord of eucalyptus that I've gathered from the side of the roads and the parks and stuff where they fell them. And it's a really good wood because it's very, very hard. It'll burn for a very long time, in contrast to using, say, 2x4s and wood pellets, pine woods and things like that. There's some good fruit trees like apple and cherry and stuff like that, and citrus they're actually very nice and hard, and they will burn for a long time. Perfect for cooking and heating. We also have a lot of oak where we live here. Oak is a very nice one. If you can find it, it's illegal to chop an oak tree down, but if there's a limb that came down, you can actually haul that away and you can chop it. Check with the city department of Make You Sad, the law basically telling you cannot take, even though it should be your human fucking right to be able to take some wood. But yeah, we have different types of wood, and it's good to learn about those. I wouldn't say that collecting wood pallets and collecting 2x4s, for instance, the pallets, I go behind construction, what do you call it? Not producers, construction, not manufacturers. Well, you can get from manufacturers as well, but mainly from distributors. There we go. You can find these pallets, which have, where I go in the roofing sector, you can find pallets that have a 2x4 that are actually 10 feet long, and you can build stuff out of them. I just built myself a shed and all that. A little side note, all for free, man. I mean, you could build yourself a little home. People in Slab City do that all the time, but these 10-footers, man, that's something. But there's a lot of wood and a lot of repurposing and things you can do, but today's subject is fire. But yeah, you can go down and chop yourself, chop these up with a Sawzall. You want to get yourself a very long blade. I'll give you some tips here as you want to get the heaviest duty metal blade. And a reciprocating saw, a Sawzall, is basically a long blade that'll be maybe about a foot long, and it just goes up and down, goes back and forth, so you don't have to, shake it. So you can go and stick this between the boards, and it literally shave off the little 1x6s that are on top, and then you can cut all your 2x4s up. But the reason why you want a heavy-duty metal blade is the fine blades will wear out, and the reason why is what you want to do is cut through the nails in between where the pallets are fastened, and as you go through, it's going to wear that blade out. So get yourself, it's some very large teeth. They're probably almost up to a 1/4 inch long, and they're made for heavy duty. They cost a lot more money than the cheapy fine tooth saws blades, but you'll definitely get your money's worth. And having that 1 foot long, what you're able to do is when one area wears out, you can actually back it up and wear out the other, so forth and so forth. You wear the tip, you just work your way down until the entire blade's worn out. You can also use these blades, the long ones, to actually bend them in different positions if you get good enough. Be careful, make sure you practice. I'm in construction, so I can handle these things with one hand. Wear some goggles, some gloves, and don't cut yourself open. But yeah, and also with the reciprocating saw, all that eucalyptus I talked to you guys about that I gathered, they actually make a blade that's made to cut actually wood with giant, like 1/2 inch teeth in it. And I've got a high-powered, very expensive, it's probably about $280, $300 for just a battery-operated saw, a cordless. And that thing, I've cut probably a whole cord of wood of eucalyptus green. And it would last me maybe about 20 minutes, you know, and I'd get maybe about 40 logs, little logs cut in about 1-foot sections. By the way, this is what I take with me when me and my children go on our mini vacations and take off. Even though we are in the wilderness and we're able to scrounge our own. So yeah, and the other thing I used to do to collect wood, for those of you who don't have money and time to go get it, is I used to go to these construction sites where they're building houses, and I would just ask them if I could take the scraps, because you see as they build houses, they have like 1-foot pieces, which is nice, and they're already pre-cut for you. You don't have to do anything. And take all the 2x4s and beams and stuff like that, all the pine, and load up your car, your trunk, or your truck. Hopefully you got a truck, not a car. I don't see, everybody should have a truck or a van. Cars are just, I don't know. You get the same gas mileage in a van sometimes than you do in a car. But yeah. So yeah, that's some ways of getting it. Splitting wood, you want to use it, split it when it's green. I like to do it better when it's green. When it dries, you can do it as well. It just makes it a little tougher, and it depends on which type of wood. The easiest way to do this is not an axe and not wood splitters, those little wood, what do you call those? Little spikes, little wood splitter spikes. I can't remember the name of them. What you actually want to get, if you're strong enough, is it's like a sledgehammer axe. And some of these things, I forget the ounces. Get one that's comfortable for you, but the heavier the better. It's a sledgehammer on one side, and that tapers down to a fine point, just like a axe. Actually a very dull, wide point, but the weight of it, when you slam this thing down, it'll split. I've split logs that were bigger, as big as round as my waist, and it took a couple hits, a couple in the same spot to get it to split, but you'll split stuff a lot easier. That's my method there. I would recommend to anybody. As far as storage goes, here's the problem with things like eucalyptus and I believe oak as well. Definitely eucalyptus is that it takes time for it to cure out, meaning it needs to dry for about 6 months to 9 months. When it's green, it's got so much oil and moisture retentiveness in it that it really won't burn as well. So it's at its full potential when you let it season out. And the good thing is it'll last. It's got oak and eucalyptus. A lot of these hardwoods are hard for a reason. They have antifungal matter inside of them, meaning that mushrooms and stuff aren't going to start growing on it to decompose them. Termites and stuff like that won't come until these things actually degrade down for a good few years. So eucalyptus, oak, you can split it, store it, and have it last for a very, very long time. And always keep in rotation. I think it's always wise of us, no matter what, because we're going into a next section here about heating. No matter what, it's always good to have that backup wood to cook, to heat, and things like that, because it's the old way, as I said. What we're going to go and do next is propane. If your propane tank for some reason wasn't working, you didn't have a gas line for your propane tank. Maybe it got corroded and didn't work. You're like, fuck, I got all this propane, but I got no way of utilizing it. Well, let's go back to our wood. And in fact, and in cases where we'd have like a catastrophe, the fire would bring things together, your neighbors, your family, or even yourself, and give you guys a level of comfort. And I think would be splendid. So let's get into propane. So propane, first of all, before I forget, because this is not on my notes, I think if we're doing this from a preparedness standpoint, you would actually want to get yourself an extra set of hoses, depending on if you have 2 propane tanks or 1 propane tank. I would recommend that you get at least 2, no matter even if you have 1. And you want to get some parts. There's some parts that has like a T. So when you get your propane tank, you can screw in a fitting, say 1 hose, but they have these things where there's a T that goes in, so you can hook 2 of those up. Those sometimes are very nice, especially if you're going long term, depending on the size of your tank. If you're doing large, I think you can get by with 1. Large meaning I think they're like 35 gallons. I get the very large ones, and then we have the very small ones, which I think are like 3.5, 4 gallons. Those ones, I think that you would definitely want to use a T, because if you're using them to heat and cool, especially for a couple days, they're going to wear out relatively fast. So these are the large tanks I like, because I live a lot of an expensive area here in Sunnyside, California, and I use a lot of gas for heating, my water heaters to take showers, heating my home at nighttime, and doing dishes and things like that. And I live on my barbecuer. I don't even cook on my stove inside the house. So I use a fair bit of propane. A lot of you guys are probably busy like me. So what I like about these large tanks is I have 4 of them. I use one on the 35 gallons, I believe, and they're very heavy. That's the problem. I'm 6'4", 215 pounds, so I can lift these things up. I've been lifting them, heavy things my entire life being in construction. But what's nice is, and you can have somebody come fill these for you. There's some companies that will drive to your home or your tiny house location, whatever you're doing. They'll fill these things up, but it's going to cost you a little bit of money, a little bit more than doing it yourself. But yeah, get the large ones if you're going to be using them a lot. And the good thing I'd like to say is that these things don't corrode like wood. If you're very busy, you can have these filled up. You could have them sitting there, and they will last for years. I don't know if they'll last forever, but I don't see how they wouldn't. Unless the tanks got rusted out. So as far as an emergency backup energy plan, propane tanks are really, really nice to have. To finish off too, I've got like 4 of the large 35 gallons, and I've got probably about 7 or 8 of the very small ones. And those are the ones I take with me camping for my little tiny stove and things like that. I don't really necessarily use it for heating because I don't go out when it's freezing cold, but yeah, good things to have. You can store them in your basement. You can put them in I have a storage container that I use some of these for work as well. And I just keep them in my storage container in a garage, and when the time comes and you need them, you go ahead and grab them. So, I forgot to mention before we move forward is storage of wood. You definitely want to make sure that you put your eucalyptus, you can leave it out in the rain, I would say, one season. But once it's cured out, I would recommend that you stack it nice and neat, that you maybe go get yourself a pellet or get yourself some 2x4s and some cinder blocks or something to keep it off the ground. Stack all your wood all nice and neat. You can build a little rack, like a 2x4 foot rack, 2 feet wide. That way you could just set all or 1 foot wide, depending on your wood that you cut. Stack it all up and then throw a tarp over that thing. You're going to get some lizards and spiders and stuff like that. So if you're taking it in your house, take consideration, grab it, wear a pair of gloves if you feel you need to. Grab your wood, each piece, knock it really hard, get a light little broom and sweep them all off, and then throw them in a basket and take them inside. But yeah, you definitely want to keep them out of the sun and the rain to preserve it as much as possible. Now, in contrast to these propane tanks, as I said, you don't really have to do much to them. I would definitely keep them out of the rain so they don't rust, and keep them out of the sun so that the paint doesn't degrade on them. But yeah. So the uses too, the versatility, I can go in. I'm using up a lot of time here, but the versatility is, I got these things. They're called catalytic safety heaters. They're not very efficient, but the very cool thing is that they're diverse. And this is just one of the things that propane is diverse in. You can take these little catalytic safety heaters and you could put them inside your home. I have one in my trailer. It's a mid-size one. And I was trying to remember how long it took to burn through a 3.5 gallon tank. I think it was like a week, and it was, a week and a half or so at max. And the thing is, it doesn't have a timer, a throttle or anything like that. Well, it has a throttle. You can do it medium, low or high. And, but the safety is that the reason why they call it a safety heater is that you can put it in your home and you're not going to die of carbon monoxide. It just doesn't do that. If you are using it in your home, one of the things I would recommend is that you get a dehumidifier, because propane lets out moisture, lets out water. I don't know, I can't remember how I researched it, but if, for instance, in my little tiny house, aka travel trailer, the windows would be sweating, the walls and everything inside, in conjunction with the breath, our breaths while we're sleeping. But that propane really gets everything wet, and just like I said with the wood, it will deteriorate your tiny house or your home or your travel trailer. These things are pretty cool because you can take them outside and you can put legs on them and you can heat yourself that way. So that's pretty neat. I would definitely recommend, as far as a preparedness thing, to go and get yourself one of these things. They're not cheap, but as I said, they're pretty nice because you could take them outside, you could put them in a room, you could put them inside your house, And in my book, I think they're definitely worth it if you've got the money. What's really nice about propane too is that I'm broadcasting you guys live from my F350 7.3 liter pickup truck, my 96, paid for by the way. But this diesel engine could actually run off propane. It can run off natural gas, and that's kind of far-fetched here. You'd have to do, I don't know how to set my truck up for things like that, but all I'm saying is that you do have the opportunity, if a bad case scenario came, that you can actually run a diesel motor. Another cool thing about propane is that you can actually run a generator to power your house. Let's just say that the power is out, you know, like in Texas, and you got your refrigerators and stuff like that, but you got no gas. The grid's down, there's no electricity, obviously, so how the fuck are you gonna buy gas? Unless you do what I do and you go and get yourself, I'm up to like 6 5-gallon containers, and I've got these things filled with gas. What we do is we put them in rotation. This is regular gas, right? Car gas, fuel. And once a month I pour the gas into somebody's tank around here, and I just exchange them for something else. We barter. So I let my gas sit there for about 5 months. And then where are we in February right now of 2021? In February, my gas that I put in there from like say October or September, I'll go and dump that and then refill it when I go to put it in the back of my car, refill it when I fill up my gas in my car, and I keep these in rotation. I think you get what I'm saying. The gas never goes bad. You just keep it moving. Just like I teach and share the philosophy of our food, you keep your food in rotation. You buy things that you're already going to use. So it's a little bit of an initial investment to buy, say like, what is that, like 60 gallons of gas? That's my goal, is to get 12 of them. The 60 gallons of regular gas will get you by in a situation where there's no fuel, and you can run a generator to keep your house nice and cool. But you're gonna use that anyway, so I don't see how bad that is. 60 gallons of gas probably costs you like $100. You want to probably get some really nice gas cans. That should be another show because I'm kind of going off here, but get some, like, I got the jerry cans. They're metal. It's what the military use instead of the plastic ones. The plastic ones will blow up like balloons when they get hot, and they can crack and leak and all these kind of things. But yeah, but we're talking more on propane here. Getting back to those generators, is there are generators out there that'll run off this gas. And let's just say you had the gas like I was just talking about, and that all ran out. Now, what do? Well, some of these generators have a hookup where you can hook propane up to them. I heard that they're not very efficient. That's why I kind of didn't buy one. I forgot how long they said, how many hours, but it wasn't a lot. I think it was like 2 days and you'll burn up, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like 2 to 3 days or something like that. And you'll burn up a 3.5 gallon, one of those little propane tanks, you know, you'll burn that up. And you can go through that relatively fast. But if in a pinch, I would say if you're in a place like where it was snowed and iced in, first of all, I think I'd put all my food in milk crates or something, just keep them outside in the snow, unless they were completely freezing over, like my vegetables and stuff like that. But I'd utilize nature, what it's doing to me. And, you know, I'd actually put cold beer out there too. I'd be sitting by my barrel, sipping on some whiskey, you know, calling my neighbors over, let's have a party. But anyways, yeah. You can use it to fuel your home as well. So it's very versatile, very storable. I think you can cook with it on your grill for sure. And I did do some research in case anybody's wondering. I'm just a weirdo like that. It is not toxic, although it's said for the gas to be gassing your food with this sort of fuel. It's actually pretty clean. And so I guess from what the research I've done, I didn't find one thing that said do not cook with propane. It's very bad for you, you know, like grilling a steak or vegetables over an open flame. So I'm moving a lot in here, a lot of time. I think, yeah, we're going on 30 minutes. I think we're going to have to cut this in. But what I wanted to talk about, and I've talked about this before, is RV trailers. And I was talking about earlier about this catastrophe in Texas and people in their houses. The story is people are sitting in their cars with the car running because it's so cold. Their furnace won't turn on because it's electric, you know? Or it's if they have gas, I guess you would be safe there. Hopefully, gas doesn't really freeze the lines and everything, so I think you'd be good. But those with electric are screwed. So they got families sitting in their cars with the car running and the heater on. So if these families, and I see a lot of wealthy people out here, and you don't really have to be wealthy to own a travel trailer. There's some pretty cheap ones out there. I think that's a perfect bug out is what these people call it, is like a bug out, meaning shit hits the fan, you have a place to go to, your bug out and stuff, like your bug out bag. That'd be a backpack with an axe and a first aid kit and stuff like that. Bug out location with a shack or something that you guys can go sit in your shack and it's got lots of food and stuff like that. But a bug out, to me, in your own home, having a travel trailer is very nice and convenient. I don't have time to really go into the details, but I'm gonna briefly go through before I have to end the show. It's automated. I would say if you were in Texas and you had this freezing storm, I would go inside and I would turn on my LP gas, my natural, or my propane fridge and freezer, and I would take a lot of stuff. If the power was going out, I'd take my filet mignons or whatever. I don't have any filet mignons, but I'd take my fancy steaks and stuff like that, beer most definitely, and load up my freezer with all my most expensive foods, and then put all my vegetables inside, and I'd move my family out from my car into my RV. And as long as I had enough of that propane, we would be warm and snug as a bug. So this thing, just like the propane I was telling you, it's very versatile. An RV is very versatile as well, if you can afford one. So it's got a fridge, as I said. It's got a freezer. That just saves your food. You guys get to sit inside of it and be warm and actually have a bed to sleep in instead of sleeping in your fucking car. You can line this thing with solar, and it works off, for those of you who don't know, a lot of these travel trailers work off gas. It won't do anything for your light bulbs. You got to have electricity, but it'll work on gas for heating and refrigeration and things like that. It'll also work off AC power, regular grid. It'll also work off DC power. So meaning there's a battery. There's usually a car battery in the front. Well, what happens if you built yourself a little battery bank? What if you just had two car batteries in there? Get yourself a little solar panel, and now you guys got lights at nighttime in case you need it. I would say you guys need to gear off towards a more survival thing, is go to sleep when it's dark and do your work and everything during the daylights. But if you have like a special needs kid like I do and you need to change a diaper, it makes it very healthy to have a light. But you can relatively for cheap, just like $400 or $500, you can set yourself up a solar panel with a charge controller and and some few batteries, and get yourself set up where that thing would need nothing. You also have cooling. What if we had a power grid shut off, which we had years ago? My grandfather, who's now passed away, I got him, I had a generator. I popped that thing on. I had his refrigerator and freezer running. I had an electric cord running from the garage or outside in the backyard, electric cord coming in with a giant fan on him and his TV. He was watching movies, drinking ice cold drinks with a fan blowing on him. In the middle of it was like 115 degrees as a heat wave, and there was a blackout for like almost the entire day. So yeah, but in the RV, if you've got yourself that generator, and you absolutely need to have the cooling, you can pop up that generator and you can actually run your AC unit. And I'd say you shouldn't need to do that. Just get yourself a little spray bottle, that you use, a little cleaning bottle. Empty out the cleaning stuff in a jar, fill it up full of water, rinse it out, of course, and just sit by a fan and spritz yourself every once in a while with the fan on you. And even if you don't have a fan on you, just spritz your arms and your legs and everything. It'll keep you from getting dehydrated. Feels wonderful. It's fun to squirt your kids with, What did I said? Pick that up. But anyway, you also have water storage. I talked about this on there. We had the water line got busted by a construction site. And speaking again, the only time I really, really need water is really to wash my hands, because changing special needs kids' diapers, it's the sanitation. Although I do have a backup, I'm that type of guy. So I guess I am a prepper, of some sort. But I've always had some of that, the stuff everybody was buying during this pandemic, the hand sanitizer. I take this with me when we go traveling, because sometimes we'd be in the desert. When I go off for a month, 2 months, 3 months with my kids, we are in the middle of nowhere. That's where I prefer to go. But changing diapers and having to cook, it's just nice to have that hand sanitizer just to make sure your hands are clean. So, yeah, but you got water storage. You can fill up tanks. These RVs, these travel trailers have them. Some are mine. I can't remember. I think it was like 100 gallons. Fill up 100 gallons, put a couple tablespoons of some bleach in there, and you don't want to drink the water, but you'd have it there to shower and at least keep things nice and tidy and clean. The second one is if you had to take a shit or a piss, you have a storage tank in there. I would say go piss in the snow as long as you can, far away from your home. If it's freezing cold and you have elderly or women and stuff like that and they're not willing to do that, get yourself a 5-gallon bucket. Everybody pee in the bucket. I don't recommend that you shit outside unless you live like in the woods, but pee in the bucket. Only use your RV tank for the poop, because that's going to fill up really fast, depending how long this thing would last. take your pee and you can actually, if you dump it every single day, rinse it out with water. If you've got some sort of sanitizing liquids, you can drink your own urine within 24 hours, put it that way. It's very, you can wash wounds in a survival situation by urinating on someone or having someone urinate on you, or using your own urine to wash out wounds. It's clean. After 24 hours, it starts to turn rancid, and that's when you got to get rid of it. So that's the safety. That's, some people might be weirded out by that, but in a survival situation, you got to do what you got to do. Dump that far away from your home. Keep that the poop, the shit tank there, so that you guys can keep using that until things get better. The last one I got on here is your guest house. People come to visit instead of having everybody crammed in your house. I personally like that if it's the right people, but you always have a place for guests to stay, and you can live. If shit hits the fan, as we have with this recession, shit's hitting the fan, you can actually live. You lost your house, or you're renting your house, you can't make the mortgage or the rental, or you can't make the mortgage, you don't know what to do. You just go right to your home, which you have everything, a shower, everything all equipped, and you can get the fuck out within a matter of days, get rid of all your shit, or go put it all in storage, move to an RV park like I'm doing right now. If you're in a blizzard or in some sort of catastrophe, as I said, you've got yourself a whole entire home for the recession, for catastrophes, like weather things. I think it's definitely wonderful to have, in conjunction with the propane and the wood, as I said. Blabbing off too much here, taking up too much time. I do have to get to work. But you guys, I wanted to say thank you for listening. If I brought you any value, please like, subscribe, do all that horse shit that people always ask you. Notice I ask after, because I hope that I gave you value. But in return, if I've given you something and inspired you, please go and review my podcast or like this on the YouTube, whatever. So that way it keeps the fire going inside me to keep doing these shows. It actually, my fire's there, but it just lights it up even more when I get comments and stuff. And yes, thank you, Dean from China again. I'm glad that we help people out, that those young people were able to change their lives around. And I hope that they listen to this show, they practice what I'm doing here, because it is a really good fucking life, man. It is really, really good. I'm enjoying time off. I've just took off about 3, or I think we're on 2 weeks now. I've taken off, maybe 3. And I've been working at my farm, which I make no money at, but I'm producing a lot of my own food. And I'm glad to be able to just do the shit when I want. I'm not stuck to anything. I'm fucking free, guys. And it feels fucking fantastic. And as with everybody who finds something wonderful, I'd imagine you want to share it with everybody. You come up with a cure for like athlete's foot, or you see someone with a problem, there's a certain stretch, like the yoga stretch or something they can do to get rid of it. And you always want to share and give, and that's where I'm at. But please, if I did, just go ahead and like it for me. And yeah, you can find the show. It's up and in it on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere where we can find the podcast. As I always say, guys, go out there and have yourself a near-life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friends.